Another highlight of this period was you playing with David Thomas and the Pedestrians, both in the studio and on record with Lindsay Cooper and Chris Cutler. How did you end up in this situation? Of course, you knew Chris from long before that, but how did you end up in that band?
Yeah, as you rightly said, I'd met Chris years ago, and Chris also played with Rocksoft quite a bit. He was very good, he was very relaxed about it. Yeah, he said, yeah, sure, I'll come along. He always played great. It was that kind of music, not too demanding. There were a few things, but Chris he approaches it very much from just playing and listening to it, and he's not sitting there reading a part or anything. That wasn't Pip's thing either. But Chris was very, so we had a good relationship. We were friends, and yeah, I think when he'd been doing some stuff with David and Pere Ubu, and then they had a contract to make a record for Rough Trade, and yeah, we really got together down at a rehearsal studio in Brixton to work on writing tunes for the record. It was all self-composed, very much, coming from David. David would sort of set the sort of terrain, if you like, and then I remember contributing a few ideas to it. And Lindsay, of course, I think was obviously always had loads of ideas. So I was recruited by Chris really to do that, to make the record. Then the record came out, and I wasn't on all of it. I think I was on, a third of it or something. There were other musicians on it, other bass players, other, a variety of people, and then included, I think Richard Thompson dubbed some guitar on it, but I had never met him in my life. So again, it was a very studio sort of concoction. But then, of course, when we got together to play live, it became something else.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of touring did you do?
We did a big tour of Europe. I think we played something like 30 dates in a month. We played most days, and we started in Germany. We went to Austria, Switzerland, France, Holland. But it was a lot of sort of zigzagging about. We covered a lot of miles. I think David and I were driving, so that was quite exhausting. For us, in the beginning, the first part of the tour, David's mum came along as well, who was really nice. Actually, she was a lovely, sort of very sweet and humble American lady, very friendly and pleasant. Which I have to say, David was quite difficult, I would say. And I think there was, being thrown together for sort of in a demanding environment for, 4 or 5 weeks was quite difficult. There was a lot of friction, especially between David and I, unfortunately. But some of the music, some of the gigs were good. I certainly remember thinking, feeling that we'd done some good gigs, but then we also did some very bad gigs as well. And they were usually, I remember when we played in Paris, it was absolutely a disaster. We were only on stage for about 30 minutes or even less, because it was awful. And, but the annoying thing was, I felt, was that, David would be very controlling, and so that I felt that if we were allowed to play, there was going to be no problem. With Chris and I and Lindsay, we could do interesting things. But, it was David's show, and he was very much in charge, and, if it was, you just had to do, he was the band leader, and we had to do what he said. And so I felt, ultimately I found that frustrating, because although, as I said, I thought we could do some great stuff, often I felt it wasn't allowed to happen, and that was frustrating. It was more, but I suppose it was a good experience for me, Henry. It's certainly the most intensive tour experience I've ever been involved with.